Trump is the 47th president of the United States, y'all. We are so excited. We are going to be looking back at the inauguration ceremony as well as some of the executive orders that Trump is signing. We will also be looking at some amazing fashion choices over the past couple of days. We've got a great, fun, exciting episode for you today as we celebrate this historic moment. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Life or Death Con. Go to lifeordeathcon.com. Use code Allie10 for tickets to this pro-life conference where I will be speaking in just a couple days. Go to lifeordeathcon.com, code Allie10. Hey guys, welcome to Relatable. Happy Tuesday. Hope everyone is having a wonderful week so far. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it's a little bit different than usual. I've got the Washington Monument behind me as well as the Capitol. I am in Washington, D.C., celebrating the first week of Trump's second presidency. I am so excited. If you are not in D.C., then just trust us when we say that this is a shift. It's a shift in energy. And I don't mean that in some weirdo new age spiritual sense. I'm talking about a literal shift in energy. You've got the people out here, whether it's in the streets or in the restaurant, in the museums, and they are just so excited and enthusiastic about Trump and the new era that we are in now. I wanted this episode today to come out a little bit early because I am recording it on Monday, and there is a lot happening even right now as I am recording, and I don't want to get too behind on the news. So just know that I'm recording this on Monday afternoon. And President Trump is going to Capital One Arena to give his speech and apparently to sign several executive orders in front of 20,000 Americans. And so we may not be able to give you the most up-to-date stuff on that particular thing right now. But don't worry, we will catch up by the end of the week. If you listen to Relatable, you will know everything that you need to know. But let me back up and talk about how this transition of power has looked over the past few days. And we'll also talk about fun stuff like inaugural balls and outfits and all of those good things. But first, let's start with Biden's farewell. So this was before the inauguration. Let's see, this was yesterday. Is today? Yes, this was yesterday. He tweeted this, which I just found to be very odd. He said, Scripture says, I have been young and now I am old, yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken. This is Psalm 37:25. Also, this is a small detail. I do think it's weird that, why doesn't he just say what the reference is? Why Scripture says Psalm 37:25. By the way, it's one of my favorite chapters. If you listen to Relatable, you have heard me quote it many, many times. After all these years serving you, he said in this X post, the American people, I have not seen the righteous forsaken. I love you all. May you keep the faith and may God bless you all. The reason I think this is weird is because it is so vague. I would love to know his expository explanation of this particular verse used. Who is the righteous in this case? And what is he saying that God is going to do on their behalf? I don't want to slam this too much because I know that he's trying to give a message of hope. And again, if this somehow directs people to read Psalm 37, which is a beautiful promise of hope for the chosen ones of God, those who have been adopted by him through Christ, but used in a political sense, I'm not sure the context really works here. Biden is gone. He is now a private citizen, and not to fast forward on our timeline too much, I'm trying to keep it chronological. He is on vacation now in the state of California. I don't think he's going to be stopping by the LA area to check on the wildfire damage. I think he'll go somewhere else, but he is now on a trip. He is on vacation. He is no longer the president of the United States. Thank the Lord. So this was a historic inauguration for many reasons. One of them was the location. The location was in a different spot than it's been in most of our inaugurations. It was moved inside. So this is what President Trump said on Truth Social. He said, it is my obligation to protect the people of our country. But before we even begin, we have to think of the inauguration itself. The weather forecast for Washington, D.C., with the wind chill factor, could take temperatures into severe record lows. There is an Arctic blast sweeping the country. I don't want to see people hurt or injured in any way. Therefore, I have ordered the inauguration address, in addition to prayers and other speeches, to be delivered in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, as was used by Ronald Reagan in 1985, also because of very cold weather. It is very cold. If you look behind me, the water is all frozen. It is very cold. There's still a lot of people out and about. This was unfortunate for people who had tickets to the inauguration. They were hoping to brave the weather and sit outside and watch this, because the number of people who were able to attend was reduced by a lot, by thousands and thousands. Obviously, you can see the picture of this rotunda. It's a lot smaller than outside. So this was a very intimate setting. Reportedly, some people who attended, like Congress people, weren't even able to bring their spouses. And so very few people. And then the Capital One Arena is where tens of thousands of people will be attending. I say will as I'm recording this on Monday, to see President Trump give yet another speech. I actually thought that it was beautiful. We'll get more into that in a second. I felt that maybe inauguration ceremonies should always be in the rotunda. It just seemed very official. I was also very impressed, just logistically, how staff was able to do this turnaround so quickly, not only clean up the area where the inauguration ceremony was going to be, but to turn this into the beautiful ceremonial place that it was. I was very amazed by that. Let's back up a little bit, though, because I do want to talk about outfits. And to talk about outfits, I can't start at the inauguration. I have to start the night before the inauguration. And then we'll get into the stunning outfit choices of the women of this administration. So if we back up to Saturday, January 18th, this was when I saw this post on X, I was like, this is the vibe shift. This is the shift in culture. This is a perfect signifier of that. You had the Oscar de la Renta X account post two pictures of Usha Vance, the incoming second lady. Now she is the second lady, but at the time, incoming second lady. Oscar de la Renta account said this: incoming second lady Usha Vance wears a custom noir velvet gown with asymmetric floral accents and a sweetheart neckline for the vice president's dinner. She looks amazing. She looks incredible. But the reason why I find this so significant is because just a few years ago, you had these major fashion houses, these sophisticated brands wanting nothing to do with Melania Trump, a literal supermodel first lady. That was a big complaint while she was first lady, that she was snubbed by Vogue and by all of these other magazines that have always glamorized and glorified first ladies like Michelle Obama or Jill Biden. But we have this supermodel and you're not going to put her on the cover of your magazine. It's very strange. So the fact that Oscar de la Renta, that this brand was willing to not only make this custom gown for Usha Vance, but also to post about it. So they didn't even just do it secretly or quietly. They wanted everyone to know. They were proud of that. That is very different than 8 years ago. I would say different than even 4 years ago. And then on Sunday, people were talking about what Melania was wearing at the wreath-laying ceremony at the tomb of the unknown soldier that Trump and Vance were participating in. She wore a black Dior cape coat, black gloves, black Christian Louboutin boots. That's kind of her staple, and people were remarking how chic she looked. And then, okay, we got to get into the outfits at the actual inauguration. And some of you are thinking, does this really matter? And the answer is no. In the grand scheme of things, this does not really matter. This is not consequential. It's not really going to have an effect on your life, but it's fun. It's fun. And for the past 4 years, we've had nothing fun to look at when it comes to Joe and Jill Biden and the things that they wear. And so I think it matters. You can fast forward to the part about the executive orders if you only want to focus on that. But we've got to get into Melania's hat. And I have something maybe controversial to say about that in just a second. But first, let me pause and tell you about our first sponsor for the day, and that is Masa Chips. Y'all, we just got a huge shipment of Masa Chips to our house. We absolutely love these. So Chief Relatable and I are big on no seed oils because they're inflammatory. They're just not good for you. he is like way more focused on it than I am. So he was really, really excited when we got these masa chips. But you never know, because sometimes when you eat these health foods, they're just not a good replacement of the actual thing. And when it comes to like tortilla chips, like we Texans are really serious about that. So I just wasn't sure, but these are really good. And it is completely worth making the switch because they are free of all seed oils and they only have 3 ingredients. They've got organic corn, grass-fed and finished beef tallow, and Redmond sea salt. That's it. And that's all that's really required to make these really good. This is a great America-loving company. They share our values. So if you've got a resolution this year to try to eat healthier and to feed things to your family that are actually good for them, good for their gut, you don't want to worry about the dangers of those processed foods anymore, then support a healthy America-loving company, Masa Chips. Go to masachips.com and use my promo code AllieB for a discount. That's masachips.com, code Allie B. The offer is good for first-time orders only. Okay, so before the inauguration, Biden greeted Trump at the White House. So this is before we get into the fashion, saying, "Welcome home." So this was Biden's warm greeting to Donald Trump in this transfer of power. Here's that one. Okay, welcome home. Great handshake there. Very friendly, very neighborly. I just think that it's strange that for the past 4 years plus, we have been hearing Biden say that Trump is a fascist, that he is very similar to Hitler, and that if he wins, that is going to be the end of American democracy. That's going to be the end of freedom. Women are not going to have rights anymore. He is going to trample upon equality, and that we basically have no future with Donald Trump. You'll remember when he gave that speech against the like blood red soaked wall behind him that was lit up red, and he was flanked by members of our military, and he gave this very dark speech while he was president talking about MAGA extremists that are led by Donald Trump, and that this is the biggest threat to Western democracy and freedom that our world had ever seen, the biggest threat that our country had ever seen. And like we have a very riddled history with lots of different kinds of injustice. So like worse than the Ku Klux Klan, worse than those who were fighting for slavery, MAGA extremists who vote for Donald Trump. That's who Donald Trump, who we were told that he was. And now we get this very warm greeting by the former president saying, "Welcome home." So I know a lot of people have said this, but I really do want to know, which one is it? Is it that Trump was never really Hitler and you just wanted to get people really angry, so they'll try to assassinate him? Because that worked. That happened a couple times. You just needed people to tune in to MSNBC. You were hoping that garnering that kind of anger by this mischaracterization of Trump, that it would get you the votes that you needed. And you knew all along that it wasn't true. Like, you knew that you were putting not only Trump's life at risk, but all of his voters' life at risk by calling him Hitler. And you knew that it wasn't true. Or you think that it is true, that he really is Hitler, and you're fine with him taking office. But that doesn't make a lot of sense. All right. Here we see the introduction of Melania's inaugural outfit. I mean, she looks amazing. She's got this navy coat on. She's got this navy hat on. And the hat kind of comes over her eyes. You really can't see half her face. I mean, she looks extremely slick, I would say. She looks chic, absolutely. She's got amazing shoes on, looks amazing. But I've got more to say about her hat in a second. But let us look at Second Lady Usha Vance. She looks beautiful, bright. She seems like a very cheerful, joyful, joyous person. She's got her pink on. This is a great color for her. I feel like she must have gotten her colors done. I got my colors done last week. I still haven't announced what they are because I'm trying to like put together this video for you. But anyway, Usha looks like she knows what her colors are because that like powder pink looks absolutely amazing on her. So she's got fashion sense. This is also, I think, incredible. Speaking of fashion, and this is from Yashar Ali. He posted, he said, just noticed that Bernard, Delphine, and Alexandra Arnault have seats in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda for the inauguration. The Arnault family control LVMH, the parent company of Louis Vuitton, Christian Dior, Fendi, and then many other high-end brands. And Yashar remarks, a remarkable turnaround from 8 years ago when all the major fashion houses and luxury brands shunned the Trumps. Now the family who controls the most prominent fashion houses has better seats than many members of Congress. I'm telling you, like, it is a big change. It is a big shift. And it's not just the fashion houses, as we'll talk about in a minute. I mean, it's the tech giants. It's the people who really made our lives miserable for the past several years, who hated Donald Trump, who hoisted up the most malicious voices against Donald Trump and suppressed the voices supporting Donald Trump and conservatism for the past few years. They also now have a prominent seat at the table. And there's some goods and some bads to that. We'll get into that in a second. Okay, so Melania's hat. Obviously, she looks beautiful. Obviously, she looks classy. She's a very fashionable person. However, I did not think that this was a good pick. Now, maybe, I'm sure she didn't think about this. She was just thinking, okay, like what is going to look best? I think at some point the hat should have been removed because it created this awkward situation. Here's Shot 7. So Trump handled that totally fine, and it ended up being okay. But he wasn't actually able, if you're just listening to this, Trump like tried to go in for the kiss, but he couldn't because her hat was in the way. Like you see the picture, like the brim of her hat is literally like hitting his forehead. And so he was attempting to give her a kiss and he couldn't. And it just made it weird. And I do think at some point I would have liked to see her eyes. It made her, especially like later on when he was signing some executive orders and she was standing behind him, like looking over his shoulder, she looked very austere. So while she has impeccable fashion sense, I'm not sure that the hat was the best pick for this particular event. And then we've got some other far more questionable fashion choices that a lot of people are talking about on X. We've got Jeff Bezos' future wife, Lauren Sanchez. Okay. So she's wearing this blazer. She's wearing a white blazer. And the blazer would be fine, although I will say the blazer doesn't really fit. It's too tight. But underneath the blazer, she's just wearing lingerie, y'all. It's not even just like a low-cut shirt. Like she's literally to the inauguration of the President of the United States wearing white lingerie under a white blazer. It's just weird. And like it's these nerdy guys like Jeff Bezos, they get some money and they finally realize after years and years of being a nerd, they can finally get the hot girl. And so they get someone that looks as much like Lauren Sanchez as they can possibly get. They bring him to the inauguration and she wears a bra to the inauguration. My grandma would say, act like you've been somewhere. She's not acting like she's been somewhere. Okay. And we also have this very, this picture of Mark Zuckerberg. I don't even know if we should put it up. I don't know. I think he was a little distracted too by her outfit. He was sitting next to Lauren Sanchez and maybe he was just thinking, okay, why is she wearing that? It's inappropriate. Maybe there was nothing untoward going on as he was staring down at her lingerie during this inaugural ceremony. And then we've got John Fetterman. John Fetterman decided that he was just going to continue defending his brand. And his brand is wearing basketball shorts and sneakers to everything, anything and everything. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe you disagree with me. There's part of me that just, again, Grandma Dot, her refrain rings in my ears. Act like you've been somewhere. You need to dress appropriately for the weather, appropriately for the occasion. Some of these people just weren't taught that. But at the same time, I almost have to applaud the commitment to the brand, because he has decided he's not going to dress up for anyone. It doesn't matter what it is. He is going comfort all the way. And I can kind of respect that. Like, it is so drab that I can kind of respect it. I think if he was wearing like an ill-fitting suit, I would almost hate that more. He didn't even try. The lack of effort is almost admirable. As much as I would rather see everyone dressed modestly and appropriately and in a classy manner at the inauguration, I don't know. Again, it's the dedication that he has to his own comfort that you just kind of have to say, okay, respect. I respect that. All right, we've got much more serious things to cover in just a second. Let me pause and tell you about our second sponsor for the day, and that is Good Ranchers. You guys know how much I love Good Ranchers. We have been relying on them for all American meat for years now. We have always got a freezer full of Good Ranchers meat. We are always eating our ground beef, our better than organic chicken. We love the salmon. We made that the other night. And the seed oil free chicken nuggets, so good. Do you know that you really can't find those anywhere? I mean, I go to every kind of health food store to try to find healthy chicken nuggets for my kids, and you can't find them. But these actually, as far as chicken nuggets go, are like the healthiest that you can get, because there's no inflammatory seed oils. They really do care about your health. They care about the quality of the meat. That's why they only get their meat from American farms and ranches. So it's just a win all around. Plus, you subscribe, you get that box of meat to your front door every month. It makes your life a whole lot easier. Go to goodranchers.com and use code Allie to claim $25 off. And you get a choice of free ground beef, chicken, or salmon in every order for an entire year when you subscribe with my code. Go to goodranchers.com/Allie, code Allie. Okay, lots of beautiful ceremonial traditions that went on before Trump was actually sworn in. President Trump, he stood in front of the Bible with Melania by his side, and he went through the swearing in ceremony, but there was a little bit of a controversy. Before I say what it was, see if you can catch it when you watch this video. Go to SOT 2.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Also, Ivanka looking great back there in the green, looking amazing. Okay, so let's take a look at this picture of President Trump being sworn in. You'll see Melania, she's holding two Bibles. According to the New York Times, the Bibles were a family Bible, so one family Bible, and then a Lincoln Bible. It was sworn on by the 16th president in 1861, as well as Barack Obama in 2009 and 2013. And people were pressed because Trump's hand was not on the Bibles. His hand was by his side. His other hand was raised, and people were saying, oh, this must mean something. This is bad. But in reality, it is not required for you to put your hand on the Bible. I don't think he's signifying anything, actually. Like, if you watch the video of this happening, it was a little rushed. You could tell Melania was trying to get up by him, and Chief Justice Roberts started reading the oath before Melania was right there. And so I think it was just a rushed situation, and maybe he wasn't going to do it anyway. I didn't go back to look to see if he put his hand on the Bible last time. I don't think that there's any significance there, because again, it's not necessarily a rule. And the fact that they provided their own family Bible means that they did care about that it was important to them, even if it was just symbolic. I mean, they thought about that. They brought the Bible. If they didn't care at all, they wouldn't have provided a family Bible. Also, I bet that I was just thinking about J.D. Vance becoming vice president today, watching him in the ceremony, his wife on the brink of tears the whole time, obviously so meaningful to her. I mean, obviously this is your husband that you love, but seeing his journey. But I was also thinking about J.D. Vance's mom, and most of you have probably read, or maybe you've watched the movie Hillbilly Elegy. It's a great book. We read it several years ago before he entered politics, and just an amazing life story and an amazing look at a very forgotten class of Americans. But he's had a really hard life. Most of you know that, who know his story. And his mom has had a really hard life and has had a really rough, difficult past. And he basically came from nothing and worked very hard to get where he is. And he really epitomizes the American dream in so many ways. And so for him to go from that fatherless and chaotic home growing up, from poverty to being raised by a grandmother, but also a drug addicted mother, to being where he is now as vice president of the United States, that is really remarkable and beautiful when you think about the providence and the grace of God, but also just what America is and what is possible here, that the circumstances of your birth, or even going back in a more pro-life sense, the circumstances surrounding your conception do not determine your destiny. Also, there were other beautiful parts of the inauguration. There were several hymns that were played, instrumental versions. For the Beauty of the Earth was one of them. And then they also played Great is Thy Faithfulness. And here's what that sounded like. Stop 3. If you are a Christian and you do not know your hymns, I encourage you to buy yourself a good old-fashioned Baptist hymnal. My mom sang hymns to me almost every night growing up, and I do the same thing with my daughters. I have this like 3-ring binder of hymns, and I let them pick out which ones we sing. And they are, obviously, they're not inerrant like the Bible, but they are such a beautiful way to memorize biblical truths. And they really are foundational to America. So go back and read some of the lyrics of the hymns, like Great is Thy Faithfulness, How Great Thou Art, This is My Father's World. That's my favorite one. Be Thou My Vision. All such beautiful illustrations of the faithfulness and the power and the goodness of God and the role that we get to play in all of this. And I was just so grateful for God's faithfulness and his grace that is being shown to all of us as we watch this transition of a really wicked administration to one whose policies are going to be really good for the flourishing of the United States. Trump's inauguration speech was very fiery. It was more of a State of the Union kind of speech than what you would expect from an inauguration speech. And if I remember correctly, maybe my memory fails me, but if I remember correctly, Biden's speech 4 years ago and Trump's speech 8 years ago was not this specific. I mean, Trump out the gates was very specific in his condemnation of bad governance, of the corruption that exists in the government, and what he plans to do executive order wise, policy wise, to make sure that he is putting America first. And I was surprised by how explicit he was in the promises that he was making. Again, this sounded more like a rally speech or a State of the Union, less like an inaugural speech, simply because inaugural speeches are usually pretty vague. They don't focus on specific policy promises quite as much, but I will say I appreciated it. I felt like that's what we needed. We didn't need a bunch of flowery language, a bunch of euphemisms, pretending like all Americans are on the same page. Trump understood the mandate that the American people gave him, and that's what he articulated in this speech. So I'll give you some highlights of that. So he opened his speech with this, and this is what we all want to feel. He said, "The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish." He said, "I will very simply put America first." He continued with an indictment on the previous administration. He said he indicted Biden's immigration policies, the overspending of money that was sent to Ukraine, the administration's failure to properly address the aftermath of Hurricane Helene in North Carolina, the wildfires in Los Angeles. I thought that was very pointed. He said the people in North Carolina had been abandoned, that they had been betrayed. That was obviously Joe Biden and Kamala Harris who betrayed them. And also under FEMA, which is under their general direction, FEMA said, look, we're not going to stop by these houses in this flooded area that have Trump signs. We're going to let them remain destitute. And so he was right to call that betrayal. And then on immigration, he condemned the policies that provide sanctuary for illegal immigrants. Later in his speech, Trump said that he intends to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy that Biden ended. He would end catch and release. He would send troops to the southern border to, quote, repel the disastrous invasion of the country. He also stated that he would designate the Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. About halfway through the speech, Trump referenced the attempt on his life in Butler, Pennsylvania. And here's what he said, top 4.
Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
All right. So people took issue with that, as I knew they would. But it is true. It's a true statement. I mean, he was saved by God's providence. All of us are breathing right now because of God's providence. God is an all-powerful, sovereign God. He doesn't sit back and say, I wonder how that's going to go. I wonder when that person's going to die. Let me just sit back and observe. He exists outside of time, and nothing can thwart his will. That's Job 42:2. And so Trump, as any of us would be if we were saved, was saved by God's providence. We don't know all of the reasons God chose to do what he did. We can never know all of the reasons that God chooses to do what he does. But it was absolutely, we can say without a doubt, if our theology is in check, that it was God's providence and his mercy that spared Trump's life, and that he did so for his glory, because God does everything for his glory, and that the sparing of Trump's life has benefited us through the policies that he advocates for. So I said it was absolutely, this is what I said on X, and someone said this is heresy. It was absolutely God's providence and mercy that he spared Trump's life for his glory and our good. I would love to know exactly what is heretical about that, because it is objectively true when we understand the character, the sovereignty of God. He also said a few more things. He said that we were going to expand our territories. We're not totally clear on what that means. We're going to take back the Panama Canal from the control of the Chinese Communist Party, which is important. He said that we're going to plant the U.S. flag on the surface of Mars. He was he had Elon Musk cheering behind him on that. And he also said, I thought this was very important, there are only 2 genders. He went in on this. Here's top 5.
As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only 2 genders, male and female.
Okay, he didn't have to do that for us, but he did. He did. He decided to go in on the culture war in his inaugural speech, and he got an applause for that. it is unfortunate that that has to be specified, that that has to be clearly explained today, but it does. And it was a total W. And as we will talk about when we talk about his executive orders, it is an indication of what he is about to do policy-wise. Thank the Lord. All right, we've got a couple more things on the inauguration ceremony. Let me pause, tell you about our next sponsor, and that is Preborn. There's some great news coming from this network of pro-life clinics that I appreciate so much. The abortion pill reversal treatment, which provides women with a second opportunity to choose, is bringing babies back to life. And that is one of the many services that Preborn provides. So not only do they try to save the lives of the babies in the womb, when the mom walks in and says, hey, I would like a sonogram, or I don't know what to do. Can you give me information? They provide the free sonogram. They provide the prenatal vitamins, information about adoption, parenting, all of that stuff. But also if a woman calls them with regret, or maybe it was a woman who already visited their clinic and she made the wrong choice. She made the choice to abort her child because she knows Preborn, or maybe a friend recommended Preborn. She can call them and say, actually, I changed my mind. I regret taking this abortion pill, and they can provide an abortion pill reversal. And it's another pill that they take that can save that baby's life. Like, I know babies that are alive today. They're now toddlers, and they are alive because their mom took the abortion pill reversal. It's just amazing. If you want to support this kind of work, then donate to Preborn. Go to preborn.com/Allie. That is preborn.com/Allie. Trump finished his speech by saying, I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We're going to win like never before. And I believe it. You know, Chief Relatable texted me when this speech was happening. He was like, I just feel like a cloud is lifted. And I agree with that. And it doesn't mean that the president determines everything. Certainly, like, the fate of this country is in God's hands. It's not solely in President Trump's hands, but again, I think we can thank the Lord for his mercy and his providence here. Carrie Underwood, she's saying America the Beautiful, but there were some tech issues that went on, and she had to pull it off a cappella, and she did that beautifully. Here's Shot 6.
You know the words, help me out here. For purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain, America, America, God shed his grace on thee.
Oh, so beautiful. I could listen to her sing all day. And actually, her hymn album, I'd forgotten about this, but her album of hymns, if you want to get into learning hymns, go listen to Carrie Underwood's album of hymns. It's really amazing. The other day, we talked about her and how she has just stood strong because she got so much blowback when it was announced that she was going to sing at the inauguration. All these people saying that she is, you know, some kind of like rapist apologist, horrible things about her. And she really stood her ground. Some of you reached out to me and told me that actually she doesn't go to a progressive church anymore like she used to, but now she goes to a biblically solid church. And I don't know her personally, and I don't know a lot about her background, but I love to hear that. And I have seen a few things over the years that signify that maybe she has also moved in a conservative direction. So praise God. Well, Chief Relatable and we went to a pre-inauguration ball that was hosted by Turning Point USA. And this is a picture of Chief Relatable and me in my ball gown and CR's tux. And so that was really fun. There were a ton of people there, and it was just great to be able to celebrate with everyone. Again, feeling like a cloud is lifted. There is just a shift in the air. And I know it's going to be a hard few years because it's not like the opposition has gone away, but it's definitely different. Like, when you have, just looking at the inauguration ceremony, when you have Mark Zuckerberg, when you have Jeff Bezos, when you have Elon Musk, when you have Tim Cook, And when you have these big wigs at fashion houses and these corporations and these tech giants now publicly saying like, yeah, I'm on the side of Trump, things are different. Now, do I think that all of these people are now conservative politically? No, I don't. I think it's for themselves. Like, I think that it's better for their business if they are on the side of Donald Trump rather than against his administration. Maybe not entirely, but of course, in some ways, I think that it is self-serving, self-enriching for these tech giants who have made their ideology very clear over the past few years to now be on board with Trump. I don't really mean that about Elon Musk because he was on board early on, but when people like Mark Zuckerberg are like, oh yeah, we're going to start rolling back the fact checkers that are very subjective and arbitrary and obviously politically biased at Meta, and we're going to take away our DEI programs. It's hard for me to believe that this is like a worldview shift for them, but we can hope that. And it is better for us. Like, it's better for us not to be in this like tiny minority that everyone hates over here. And it's certainly better for like conservative media, conservative social media. I do think that we could be entering a golden era for that. Okay, let's talk about some of these executive orders before we close out. President Trump signed his first executive orders in a ceremony at the Capitol. These orders established the nominations for his administration. He also signed an order mandating that the flag be flown at full staff today and for all future inauguration days. And so it's been at half-mast for a really long time because Jimmy Carter died. And so the flag will be at full mast, which is exciting. So he is expected to sign more than 200 executive actions on Inauguration Day, a massive wave of policy priorities focused on border security, energy, reducing the cost of living for Americans. He will also sign multiple omnibus executive orders that each contain dozens of major executive actions. I think, like, in principle, it's not that great to have to rule by executive action, but like each president has to undo what the previous president has done. And again, I think when they feel that they've got a mandate, a responsibility to the American people, they want to get things done as quickly and as decisively as they possibly can. When it comes to border security, as he said in his speech, he's going to declare a national border emergency. This will direct the U.S. military to work with the Department of Homeland Security to fully secure the southern border. Praise God for that. He will also create task forces for the protection of Homeland Security with officers from various intelligence agencies. He wants to fully eradicate the presence of criminal cartels. That should be so obvious how important that is. Trump will reinstitute the Remain in Mexico policy. That means if you're coming over here to claim asylum, then you got to wait in Mexico until you get your court date, until your court date comes around, and then we can figure out if you are going to be able to find asylum in the United States. He's also expected to sign an executive order that aims to end birthright citizenship for children born to illegal aliens in the United States. The order will direct federal agencies not to recognize these children as U.S. citizens on a prospective basis, meaning it would not affect those already granted citizenship under the previous interpretation. And then when it comes to trans ideology, as we already alluded to, the executive order that it looks like he's going to sign establishes government-wide the biological reality of two sexes and clearly defines male and female. So this means the agencies will cease pretending that men can be women and women can be men. When enforcing laws that protect against sex discrimination, they define woman, for example, as an adult human female. Okay, it's really sad that we have to define that. What anyone for all of time from any culture could have told you, we actually have to write it explicitly because we have people like AOC who will stand on the House floor and say something ridiculous like trans girls are girls. The executive order ends the practice of housing men and women's prisons. Praise God. I mean, this saves so many vulnerable women, and taxpayer-funded transition for male prisoners, something that Kamala was heartily for. The executive order ends the forced recitation of preferred pronouns. DEI, Trump will also end all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs across the federal government. That's something that he promised in his speech, that he would ensure that we lived in a merit-based society, or at least in the government, that it will be as merit-based as possible. All right, last sponsor for the day is Jace Medical. We're looking at a lot of different disasters that have been going on for the past few months in the United States, and we've seen families just destitute. And something that can make those situations a lot worse is someone not being able to get the medication that they need, whether it's antibiotics for an infection, or whether it's a prescription that you rely on a daily basis. You need an emergency medical kit from Jace Medical. The Jace case comes with antibiotics. It comes with, if you want to, ivermectin or an EpiPen, Tamiflu, lots of different add-ons. And all of these, again, can be life-saving. Or you can get a Jace Daily case, which gives you the prescriptions that you and your family rely on a daily basis for a year. And so go to jace.com, use code Allie10 at checkout for a discount on your order. That's promo code ALLIE10 at jace.com. All right, guys, that's all we've got time for today. I just want to thank America First Policy Institute. They have allowed Blaze TV to use their offices to film today, and they have been totally gracious in allowing us that gift. They've got such an amazing view. We've got so much more to talk about this week. And guess what, guys? Guess what? My dad is going to be guest hosting Relatable on Thursday. Isn't that fun? I've never had a guest host before, but we are going to be in DC. And so my dad is going to take over the mic from the Relatable studio on Thursday. And so make sure that you send in your questions for him that you want him to address, and he will get to those on Thursday. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. We will be back here tomorrow.